Hello! Welcome friends to Challenger Tabletop for another painting stream. As usual, I've been hastily getting ready for the stream, so now I can just take a sigh of relief. We're live. Welcome to another paint and chat, and today the topic is going to be 40K video games, and I'm going to be talking about video games up to the year 2018. I did a poll on Facebook in the 40K group, what's your favorite 40K video game, and I had pretty much every game from, like, let's see, where do we start? 1998? Maybe earlier. Let's see here. 1993 up until about 2018. So tried to get every game I could. from that time period into this poll, and I got some expected, some less expected votes from the Facebook community. And we'll be going through that, discussing the ones I've played, and giving just kind of an overview of some of the ones I haven't, and letting you know how people preferred them, at least when I conducted this poll. So there might be a few things missing, probably games after 2018, so this more recent stuff. And personally, I haven't been playing much after Space Hulk Deathwing, which came out in 2016, but then it got like an updated version after that, probably around 2018. That would be the last one that I played. So if we get some people joining chat who want to talk about the current 40K games that are out, and of course everybody's welcome to give their opinions. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments, what are your favorite 40K games, and what do you think was ranked too high or too low? And what should people, what's worth going back and playing? I drank entirely too much coffee last night, so I got hardly any sleep, so I have a feeling no matter how much I drink tonight, I'll have no problem getting to bed. Well, I have a very exciting model to paint today. Quite possibly my greatest kit bash ever. This is continuing with Genestealer cults this week in honor of the new codex. And today we're going to be painting my kit bash Genestealer cult's Locust. So this was a character I basically knew nothing about, and then someone recommended the character to me on the Genestealer cult's Facebook group. And so I checked out the data sheet, which I had somehow overlooked. I thought the Locust was kind of a priest, kind of like an icon ward or something like that, based on the model. And so I never really looked at the data sheet for him. Turns out he's a kind of a brawler, hand-to-hand combat specialist, and also like a bodyguard character. You are strangely limited to just one of these, I think, per detachment, like you are with all Genestealer cult's characters, which is weird because you would think bodyguards you'd want more than one. But let's go ahead and take a look at the mini. I'm very proud of this one. So here you can see my Genestealer cult's Locust, and make sure I've got audio. Yep. So the Locust is, oh, I think I have some audio on this video. Let's turn that off. So here you can see the Locust. Normally he's got his cloak wrapped around him and you can't see his tail or any of his arms, and he has a couple of like cross swords on his back in scabbards. And I thought he looked overall like just way too static and kind of lame. Looks kind of like a Gregorian chanting monk or something. And so I actually have made one small change to him since I took this video, which is I added a Genestealer cult's icon behind his head. The official model has one that's kind of like mounted on his back, very strange, and I decided to go ahead and imitate that just so it'd be clear which model I'm using here. But the base model is a Warhammer Fantasy Dark Elf Assassin, so that's where the head, the cloak, the body, and the two arms, which are holding daggers, come from. And then I added a third arm. It's actually a Drukhari arm, and I sort of kit bashed this neurotromal rod, which is not exactly a weapon he wields, but it's like an item or artifact that he carries that reduces leadership of all units nearby, or enemy units. It kind of creates sort of like brain static, I guess is the best way I could describe it. And then I also added a hypermorph tail, which he has equipped. It's a weapon that lets him make one extra attack each time he fights. I think it might be like the actual bit that I use might be maybe a whip from a Hive Fleet Tyranids model, maybe a Venom Thrope. But in any case, I thought it looked great as a hypermorph tail, and I really like how this guy came out with all three arms and sort of dynamic pose, and the tail whipping around and the cloak flying up. I just think he's going to be very cool, a lot of fun to paint. Hopefully I do him justice here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the model as I have him ready to paint here. Just going to adjust my camera a tad. Alright, so switching to the painting cam here, and can take a look at the model. And so you see I added this Gene Stealer Cult icon behind his head, which I did that to match the official model. And I added some red sand to his base, which I painted gray. And I did go ahead and give him a nice little black rim on the base with some black paint. Figured you guys wouldn't care if I started the base off camera. You'll still get to see most of the miniature get painted. I do have to think a little bit about how I do want to paint him. I'm thinking his armor, either silver or maybe blackened silver. And then he seems to have some cloth visible at the sort of cracks between his armor and the back of his pant leg. I'm not sure if I want to do that gray with a brown wash or black. And then normally on my Gene Stealer Cult's characters, I give their skin of their hands and face pink, and their sort of bone armor white. Not sure what I want to do for the tail. Probably pink. And then the cloak, I'm not sure. Do I want to use yellow, which is kind of my normal what's the word, accent color for my cult, or maybe I want to just give him a black cloak, sort of make him look more like an assassin. The official model has purple. I don't think I really want to do that, as it's not really a color I use for my Gene Stealer Cult outside of their skin, which is kind of a pinkish purple. I am feeling much better today. I had kind of a cold yesterday, so hopefully I can talk without too much difficulty tonight. And I could go wild with gold armor. I don't think so. Probably I'll use gold on the icon and on his neurotrauma rod. And then his swords, thinking probably silver with gold handles. Maybe a pink handle and a gold pommel. But yeah, I think I'm ready to dive in on this guy. I'm leaning toward silver for the armor, probably silver with just a black wash on it. Or maybe a little bit of watered down black paint. Then for his pants, I guess we'll go gray with a brown wash, just because we aren't really using that color anywhere else. Unless I want to do that on the cloak. I have done other characters with my cult with kind of gray cloak with a brown wash. But this cloak does have sort of big wide open spaces, so I'm not sure how good the wash is going to look on there. Maybe I'll try some different techniques. And then I have thought about coming back and hitting some of my cloaks after I do the wash with a little more gray paint to kind of fix the pooling and puddling, so we'll see about that. I think I'm ready to dive in on this guy. I'll get a couple of paints out. And how do we want to count up or down the top games of Warhammer 40k video games? It might be, I guess we'll count up toward the highest ranked. That makes sense. And we'll get out a few colors I'm going to need. Unroll my brushes and my little palette that I use here. I did buy a couple new paints today. I got another bottle of XV88 Brown and some... They were out of Pallid Witch Flesh, which is my go-to for Drukhari skin. But I did pick up some Screaming Skull, kind of a bone color. Might come in handy on this guy. We're going to need some gold. Some ink wash. Don't know if we'll need sepia this time. Gray. Looking for good old Agrax Earthshade and Kerber Crimson, Abaddon Black. I think we got just about everything we're going to need here. And we should be about ready to dive in. Does he have like a leather belt? Not so much. All right, let's get painting and start with the least voted video games in the 40K franchise between, I guess we're saying, well, pretty much the last game I have on this list chronologically, I think would be Space Hulk Deathwing. So talking about games that came out before that, so everything before 2018. And starting with the lowest voted, and our first two games got 0 votes. So I don't know if nobody played them or nobody liked them, but either way, nobody voted for them. And to start us off, well, let's get my brushes out so I can be painting during this. We have Storm of Vengeance 2014. I'm ashamed to say this looked like this game had Dark Angels theme to it. And Storm of Vengeance 2014 was pretty much like a Plants vs. Zombies knockoff, if you're familiar with that. So basically you have multiple lanes and sort of horizontal lanes, and there's units sort of walking side to side down these lanes, and you're sort of deploying various forces to various lanes. It looked pretty lame, very much like a casual game, and the idea of like a Warhammer 40K casual game isn't a terrible idea, but clearly it was not a hit, and at least no one on Facebook would admit to liking it. And I don't think there's much else we need to say about that one. We'll move straight along to the other 0 vote game, which was Warhammer 40K Carnage 2014. And it looks like this guy has a little mask over his lower face. So he has kind of a bandana covering his mouth, so I guess we don't have to worry about painting that pink. So Carnage was surprisingly like a side-scroller. I assume you play as a Space Marine. I didn't really look too hard at it. Mostly was just trying to refresh myself on what some of these lower ranked games were that I wasn't really familiar with. And so, yeah, both of those got 0 votes. So feel free to skip Storm of Vengeance and Carnage unless you're really on the lookout for a Warhammer 40K side-scroller or a sort of Plants vs. Zombies style casual game. In which case, maybe these are hidden gems for you. Moving on to games that got 1 vote. And once we get up to about 6 votes, I stop paying attention to how many votes everything got. But it was kind of funny down here at the ones that got hardly any or only 1. So some of these games looked kind of very similar to me. And one of those was Sanctus Reach, which came out in 2017. And it's kind of like a tactical, turn-based strategy game. Look like, models have like action points that get used up as they move or shoot or whatever. And it's, you also control like multiple, like a whole unit at a time. So you'd have like a little squad of 3 or 5 guys and you'd move them around as a unit. And you'd be controlling multiple units at the same time. So it looked kind of forgettable. Moving on, another 1 vote game was Regicide 2015. And this was another one that was sort of stood out from the pack because of its sort of strange format. Regicide was like a battle chess knockoff. If you guys remember Battle Chess, it's a super old school game. In the original Battle Chess, you just play chess, but every time one piece takes another one. There's a little animated battle sequence where one piece will stab another or break it into dust or whatever. And Regicide is not exactly straight up chess. It's more like chess inspired. So you have a little grid. I'm trying to figure out how can I get a little more light. I guess it's just a hard to see part of the model here. So Regicide is like, you move pieces around, and I think if you take a piece in the traditional chess fashion, they probably have a little hand-to-hand combat, but your pieces can also shoot at other pieces, so there are like ranged attacks. So it's not exactly like chess. So that was Regicide. And I guess in Regicide is like also one of the game modes of that game where you have to try to take the king or something like that, the general, the warlord, we'll say. Also got one vote was Space Wolf 2014. And it kind of looked like another of these turn-based tactics type games. Except I think in this one you have individual Space Marines that you're moving around, and it looked like you have a very small number of units, like 1 or 2 Space Marines in some of the missions, as opposed to Sanctus Reach, where you're ordering around like whole units in an entire army. Then we have one more game that only got one vote, and that was Armageddon, which came out in 2014. And this one to me looked like maybe a little bit underrated. Oh, hey, good to see you, Dominic. We got Dominion Dynamics in the chat today. Good to see you, buddy. We played a game of Warhammer last week, me and Dominic. My Dark Angels versus his Eldar. And I guess I've talked about a little bit on stream, but we had a fun narrative where the Eldar had sensed that a shipment of medical supplies was infected with a gene stealer virus, and they showed up to attack the spaceport, I guess, where the supplies were being offloaded in order to destroy the tainted medical supplies. And the Dark Angels put up a valiant fight, but they were a bit outgunned, outmatched. And speaking of which, I need a rematch against Dominic. We talked a little bit about our next game, saying maybe if the Eldar appeared out of a webway portal, maybe the Dark Angels are going to go in pursuit of the Eldar and try to find that webway portal and destroy it. So good to see you, Dominic. We could touch base about that next game. I was thinking we could have some stakes for the game, like if I win, I find the portal, and if I lose the game, I don't. Kind of basic stakes. But you'll have to let me know your ideas. Today I'm painting a kit-bashed Genestealer Cult Locus, kind of an assassin bodyguard character, and running down the Warhammer 40k games, pretty much of all time, except for the most recent year or two. I guess everything up until about 2018 in terms of Warhammer video games. And we're doing kind of a countdown based on how they were ranked or voted by a Facebook group poll that I did a while back. If I had to guess, I'd say I conducted this poll in about 2019. So it's a few years old, but kind of fun to go over, and most of these games are super old. Dominic says, definitely, man, a mini narrative of sorts before I move. Oh yeah, Dominic is getting ready to move. He's in the military, and he's just got his new orders, so he's going to be going to the world of Warhammer over in the UK. Should be really fun. I've been to the United Kingdom several times. I have a brother who lives in London and in the Cotswolds. And let's see, I went over there. I had the great fortune to go visit him in England at the very end of 2019. So right before the pandemic and lockdowns and everything, I got to have a wonderful Christmas trip to see family over there, and I got to visit Stonehenge and the Royal Albert Concert Hall, you know, with thousands of people. Okay, I don't know, hundreds. It was a packed audience. So I got to experience some things that you're not going to see again for a while. Dominic says, moving to Everett, first in March, UK hopefully in August. Okay, I'll find out in a few weeks, fingers crossed. But we'll have to get some streams in before then. Yeah, absolutely. So if you didn't catch that, our first live stream game, we had some technical difficulties. We thought we were streaming the whole time, so it was kind of embarrassing when we finished and realized, no, we didn't. I think my problem was when we were starting the stream, like a window popped up saying, do you want to conduct like a bandwidth test? This was using OBS Studio. And I kind of foolishly clicked yes, and then it looked like we were streaming, so we just went ahead with the stream. But apparently, it may have all just been a bandwidth test. I don't know. But that's my guess as far as what went wrong. I think we'd figured that out day of, or at least I haven't figured out anything else since then. And so far we've been counted up the sort of lowest ranked games. We just went through the 0 and 1 vote games. So the sort of worst of the worst, which started with a sort of Plants vs. Zombies knockoff and a side-scroller, quite surprisingly. Or maybe not so surprisingly that those were not voted very high. And I'm super excited about this model I'm painting. I really love this kit bash I came up with. I feel like it's maybe my favorite kit bash I've ever done. And Dominic had a fantastic kit bash for his Eldrad Ulthuan for our game. And so that was super cool. Here you can see Dominic, maybe a better view. Very dynamic pose here, the based on the Warhammer Fantasy Night Elf. And we're just getting into the games now that had 2 votes. So at least 2 people liked these games. Starting with, I need some coffee. I'm just getting over a cold, so my voice did wear out last night toward the end of the stream. Might have to take a sip every once in a while to keep going here. So, 2007, we had a 40k game called Squad Command. And it reminded me of an old game, I think it was called Commandos or something, where you have kind of like a squad. Okay, Squad Command, of course you're commanding a squad. Guess that much goes without saying. But it's like a tactical game with, I think it was turn-based with sort of like, that would show like the vision of each unit in your squad and of enemies. So I imagine there's some sneaking around or setting up your sort of Overwatch directions and that kind of thing. And then in 2016, oh man, I don't know if my voice is going to hold out. We had a sort of an action-adventure 40k game called Eisenhorn Xenos. And seems kind of interesting to me. I've not read the Eisenhorn books, which I assume you play as Eisenhorn. That's what it looked like. So you're sort of like running around as this Inquisitor with a green trench coat. I assume mostly killing stuff, but also talking to people, and it seemed like it had some story element to it. Did look like one of the more interesting ones that I'd never really played. Like you would get some actual storyline from it, and I assume it would be more fun if you've read the Eisenhorn books, but maybe it would be a good introduction to the character if you haven't. Not really sure. And so far I have not played any of these. I have played probably about half a dozen Warhammer 40k video games, so I'll give my opinion of the ones that I have played when we get to them. Just painting the first base layer on anywhere this guy's got like exposed skin right now. And normally I do his like arms white, where he has sort of Genestealer cult or Genestealer kind of bio armor or chitin. But this guy's pretty much all of it covered up with actual literal armor. So I think I'm going to do that silver with kind of a layer of black glazed over it. But we're quickly approaching all the skin painted. That might be the end of it. All right, we can move on. And then the third game that got 2 votes actually looked pretty interesting. It's called Gladius. Came out in 2018. And Warhammer 40k Gladius was like a... oh, you know what? I was thinking I ought to move my water, because right now I have it right next to my mic, which makes it super loud whenever I rinse my brush. That's probably much better. So Gladius is a lot like Civilization. So I had no idea there was like a 40k Civ game out there, but apparently there is, and it's called Gladius. So imagine, you know, building up your hive cities and then sending out characters to scout and battle and attack other, I guess, the cities or settlements of other races. Looked pretty fun. I never really got into the Civilization games. Did you play those, Dominic? Or are you a big video gamer at some point? To be honest, I've actually cut back on video games quite a bit. I don't really play much anymore for about the last maybe year and a half. Trying to get more into 40k, I guess, with my free time. So apparently I'm not totally over my cold. I should try and get to sleep earlier tonight than last night. Alright, so thinking maybe I want to paint some gray next. Just going to slap some gray paint on his cloak. Going to use Administratum gray. And don't really need to do a whole lot here. I just kind of like the old Zenithal spray from above to give it some highlighting. I'm just going to kind of do that with the brush. I'm planning to come along and add a wash after this to really dirty up the cloak. I just want to sort of create a sense of highlights underneath that. And it's already kind of gray from exactly that, my Zenithal Prime. Zenithal meaning just spraying white from above, from the zenith. There we go. Dominic says, oh, I'm definitely a big gamer. Helps me connect me to my family, dad and little brother, when we have free time. I've played Civilization 6 as my only Civ game. Otherwise, I play a lot of VR and PC games lately. Cool. Or spent my free time finishing up my basing for my models for the 28th. Yeah, awesome. I think it's the 28th. I can double check that in a minute. I'll shoot you a message on Instagram. So if you haven't, check out Dominion Dynamics on Instagram, spelled just like you see his username here. You can check out some of his Eldar models and actually a whole bunch of different stuff. Seemed like I saw about 4 different factions on your Instagram, if I remember. And some very cool stuff. I think even the very cool Eldrad Kit Bash is up there. I think. So Gladius looked kind of interesting. So moving up now to games that got 3 upvotes. We have Deathwatch 2015. So this was like turn-based tactical combat game, but that's about all I wrote down about it. It sort of blended in a bit with some of the other tactical ones like Sanctus Reach and Space Wolf. But must be a little better than those because it got one extra vote. And then we had Kill Team 2011. This was kind of an interesting one. It looked like a kind of an action top-down game. Reminded me a bit of an old game called Smash TV, which is, I think, Super Nintendo or something, where basically you're controlling the movement of your character in 4 directions from above while you're also shooting in those all 4 directions. So kind of blasting enemies in 360 degrees while you move around trying to avoid attacks. So kind of action arcade almost style game, I would say. And now we're hopefully getting up to games that are a little better with, let's see, I think 4 votes. 1, 2, 3, 4 was Space Hulk Tactics 2018. Now this one did look pretty good. Somehow it flew under my radar. I thought I was aware of all of the Space Hulk video games that were out there, as it's actually one of the sort of genres I do like. I played the original Space Hulk video game, which came out in 1993, so super old school. I think that was like an MS-DOS video game. And I thought the only one I didn't play was Space Hulk Wrath of the Blood Angels, but apparently I didn't play this one either. And Space Hulk Tactics from 2018 looked like a very faithful recreation of the re-release of the board game. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but back in the day there was a Space Hulk board game, and then it got update and re-release probably around 2013, 2015. And Space Hulk Tactics 2018 looked like basically a video game version of the new board game with pretty cool graphics, turn-based, highly tactical. Looks fun. If you're looking for a Space Hulk video game that's like tactics-based and not a shooter, I would say that would probably still be the go-to one to check out. Alright, we got his cloak painted gray. I think let's get some silver paint on his armor. And maybe also the handle of his, or the rod part of his staff there. His neurotromal rod. I love that name. So gonna be using Iron Hand Steel, good silver base paint, but it does need a bit of a shake. Getting into a couple of sort of cursed Warhammer 40k video games here. So I think these had 5 votes each. And next up we have the 2015 video game Freeblade. Warhammer 40,000 Freeblade. So I'm trying to remember if you said you played Knights, Dominic, Imperial Knights. Well, Freeblade is a Imperial Knights fighter game. So, yeah, fighter like in the style of, at least it looks to me from the few seconds I watched of it, looks like a fighter in the style of Tekken or Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but you're a knight. So, very strange combination to me. I would think that of all the games that seemed like it would be tactical, Knight Combat seemed like it would be up there, but instead they decided to make a fighter So really didn't expect that. Very sort of strange decision, if you ask me. Did not really look fun. Oh, Dominic says Freeblade actually got me into playing Imperial Knights. Oh, so you're a fan. Okay. I still play it when I have downtime at work. Oh, that is funny. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. We have a fan of Freeblade in the house here. Maybe you're one of the, 5 people who voted for it. That came out in 2015. Then we have a game from 2016. Eternal Crusade. And I think one of the games a lot of Warhammer 40k players are familiar with is Space Marine. And Eternal Crusade looks like Space Marine before Space Marine. From the few seconds of gameplay I watched, it looks like you could play as Imperial Space Marine, a Chaos Space Marine, or various Eldar characters. Like, I think I saw Swooping Hawk and a Banshee as a couple of options for Eldar characters. So that's kind of interesting. Pretty rare that you get to play as Eldar, especially in a sort of action / shoot 'em up type game. Not sure what I guess just action is probably the best way to describe it. So Eisenhorn looked kind of similar, but looked more sort of story and adventure focused. This looked like maybe it had multiplayer modes. I don't know if that's still supported, but seemed like probably it might have been a heavy inspiration for Space Marine. And so we had a lot of sort of ties there. And then we have like a 4-way tie again with 6 votes. So games that got 6 votes, starting with probably one of the first ever 40k games I played on computer, Space Hulk from 1993. So this was, I'm pretty sure, a DOS-based game. And I think I played it like much later, probably closer to 1998 or something, toward the tail end of when DOS gaming was still a thing that you could do. And I quite liked that version of Space Hulk. It was very much like the board game, but it was interesting because it wasn't exactly turn-based either. It would have a pause button where you could pause and then assign orders to your troops and then hit start again, and everything would start moving at once. Your Terminators and the Gene Stealer enemies. But the pause button was on a timer where you couldn't stay paused forever, which is, I mean, kind of a weird feature for a game. Usually pause button is good for like getting up and leaving to go use the restroom or get something to drink or whatever. But in this game you could only stay paused for about a minute before the game would automatically unpause and the Gene Stealers would come kill all your Space Marines. And it was very challenging but very fun. It was kind of felt like a puzzle game because you had to sort of plan your orders out for your squad just right for them to accomplish the mission without all getting killed. And I'm pretty sure I did beat it also. And also kind of cool, it was a game that featured the Dark Angels. So I'm pretty sure you were playing as the Deathwing Terminators in Space Hulk. So that was cool. It has a very classic, like old school animated intro, which still makes me super nostalgic when I see it today. I think you've got like your Terminator squad, and first there's like some banners, some Deathwing banners and some music, and then super old school like computer music from like early DOS gaming. then you see your Terminators all stacked up, and they're like barely animated, and the sergeant's like, "Overwatch, to the left!" And then they all turn to the left and start shooting, and you see like tons of Gene Stealers just like ripping their way through the walls. Pretty awesome looking, and they all just get gunned down in a few seconds, and then like one Gene Stealer makes it through the hail of fire and kills a Terminator in like one swipe. So it kind of sets you up for the fact that this is going to be like high stakes action where you're gonna massacre swarms of Gene Stealers, but if only one gets through, you're screwed. And that's definitely how the game played. And had a good like variety of missions where you'd have to go set fire to a room or recover a relic or I think a cat. Those are like the little sort of what do you call them, like remote control type vehicles. Dominic says, got a question. Not sure if anyone has asked, but what made you drawn to the questionably heretical Dark Angels? You may have addressed it before, but I'm curious. Well, back in the 90s, my friend who introduced me to Space Marines and Warhammer, he and I both started collecting some Space Marines, and he chose Dark Angels, so I automatically had to choose something different, so I went for Blood Angels. I liked the sort of Black Death Company and didn't mind red armor. So I painted a couple Blood Angels, painted maybe like 3 Death Company and 1 Blood Angel Sergeant in like my whole time in high school. So I was kind of a perfectionist painter. I painted a few other models, painted some models as gifts for friends, but I just didn't have the endurance to paint all of my own models. And then when I ended up getting back into Warhammer after college, kind of the idea I had was just to get my models out of the, shelves or drawers where I had them, not even fully assembled, and see if I could just put them together and then actually have a force to play the game with. Since I knew I had probably about maybe 40 or 50 Space Marines kicking around here and there at my parents' house. I basically just thought, oh, it's a shame that I can't actually play the game because I, don't actually have them painted. Why not just get them out, assemble them, and paint them? And since I hadn't really made it much progress with Blood Angels, I felt free to pick a new chapter. And I spent quite a lot of time thinking about it. And what drew me to the Dark Angels was probably the color scheme. I always liked the green Space Marines with their elite Terminators wearing white armor. And I especially just thought the Terminators in white always looked really cool. And so that was kind of the deciding factor for me. And I want to say that at the time that I decided to play Dark Angels, they hadn't gone as heavily into the lore of the Fallen and all that, and that kind of came later. So I didn't exactly choose to be a heretic or a traitor or what have you. It just kind of happened. And I don't regret it. Dark Angels are loyal. We're the loyalist, most best Space Marines in the entire Imperium. We just can't let anyone know our secret because of the consequences. That's my point of view. And then once I had kind of had that idea to paint Dark Angels, I picked up the Space Hulk board game and went about converting all of the Terminators from Space Hulk into Dark Angels Deathwing. So that was like a fun hobby project that came about because I picked Dark Angels, and it was probably right around the time that re-release of the board game came out. Was probably right around the time that I was painting up all my Dark Angels. So I'm not sure if that was part of the reason that I chose Dark Angels was because of Space Hulk and the idea of making all those Deathwing Terminators, but that might have been it. So hope that answers your question. The color and the Deathwing Terminators. pretty much. And at the time, I barely even registered that they had like, Raven Wing in black for fast attack. And I probably didn't even plan on getting any fast attack options at that point, but down the road it made sense. And so I ended up gravitating towards 4th Company and 1st Company and, of course, 2nd Company Ravenwing. And then more recently I started to pick up some Primaris Space Marines, and I've been steadily giving away my firstborn 4th Company to the point where I've now pretty much gotten rid of all my firstborn. I'm expecting them to become a Legends choice before too long. Don't know for sure when that'll happen, but I've been expecting it since we got Primaris and Legends became a thing. So now I play 10th Company Scouts. Mixed with a little bit of 1st Company and 2nd Company. However, I did finally get back into a little bit of Green Wing. I did hold on to a Terminator Captain who I had painted as 4th Company, and a Primaris Primaris Lieutenant who I painted as 4th Company. And most recently, I picked up some of these bad boys, the Eradicators. So I've actually got 6 Eradicators waiting for paint, and they're probably going to be 4th Company. And so I will be getting back into my 4th Company at least a little bit. Dipping a toe back in with 6 Eradicators, and I may get up to 9 Eradicators now that I've seen this most recent Tau announcement. After the railgun announcement, we got yet another super powerful Tau weapon profile that I just saw for the first time today, and it made me groan again. It's like a 2-shot damage 12 weapon. Damage 12, good grief. So seems like Eradicators are going to be about my only answer to that, or else Ravenwing, Storm Speeder, not Thunderstrike. Dominion says, those will do some major damage against my Wraiths. Yeah, they will. Hopefully, if they survive. In our last game, Dominic took out all 6 of my Eliminators before they got to fire a shot. So that really hampered my ability to remove his Wraith constructs. Good play. And I'll have to learn my lesson from that and play a little more cagey with them next time. Put them behind the ruins, not in the ruins. Don't count on their camo cloaks to keep them alive. That was what I learned last game with my Eliminators. And I'm kind of feeling like it's a shame I have to pay, such a sort of points tax for my infiltrate ability, because pretty much every time I infiltrate, I just get shot off the board easier. And my plan was to try and get raise banners on like 3 objectives turn 1, but that did not happen. I got raised banners up on 2, and I unfortunately had to go second, so it was a bad combination of secondary and bad luck, I guess. But I need to stop thinking I'm going to get to go first, because it always comes back to bite me when I get it in my head that I'm going to be able to go first with my infiltrating army. And in fact, I need to be a little more careful about infiltrating in general. I think I would have almost been better off just keeping everything in my deployment zone to start. And another lesson I could learn from that last game is to screen my backfield maybe a little more effectively. Dominic was able to bring in his Banshees behind my army, and they are super fast, so they cause all kinds of problems in my back lines. course, if I screen that out, you could probably just bring them in front and they'd be just as effective, or behind a ruin is especially scary. Did I get some silver paint on this guy's mask? I think so. I wonder if I can get this light up a little higher without having it too in frame. That'll have to do. Alright, well, let's see if I've got all this guy's armor painted yet. Getting there. Whoa. Not used to having my water over here now. So are you working on your bases? I told Dominic he's got to get his army based by our next game. They're looking good. His Eldar, Craft World Eldar. Is there a name for your like your force or your craft world? Oh, you play Ulthway, huh? Or are you like a custom version of Ulthway with a different name? That's kind of what I do with my Drukhari. I play. Oh, does this guy have bare upper arms? I don't think so. I think he's got a shirt on, I assume. Maybe I could give him bare upper arms if I wanted. With my Drukhari, I use, well, like for my Cabal, I use Poison Tongue, but I have a custom name for them. I call them Cabal of the Void Hunter. And I have my own custom lore for them as well. So that's fun, but I like using one of the main Cabal rule sets just because it makes it easier for everyone else to remember what they do. There we go. Went a little heavy-handed with that silver at the very end there. Let's try to brush some of that off. Alright, so do you care to vote on should this guy... I think he should have a shirt because it looks like he has a shirt, like a couple wrinkles there, but I don't know. Should he have a bare upper arm or a shirt? That's the question. Question of the moment. So other games that were tied with Space Hulk 1993 with 6 votes. Or maybe I should figure out what I'm going to paint next. Gold. Let's do gold. So next up we have Rights of War from 1999. Kind of surprising this one got as many votes as it did, considering it's so old, but I guess people have fond memories of it. So Rights of War was like a... so I guess it came out after Final Liberation. So Final Liberation was kind of like the most old school strategy 40k game. Rights of War was hex based. So, I don't know if you remember, there was a brief period in the 90s when hex grids were like all the rage for video games. And that was apparently when they made Rights of War. And it looked pretty fun, kind of interesting, like heavily tactical. And I think you were controlling a whole army, so it looked kind of epic. And then... I don't know how this one made it so high up the list. I guess it has a few fans. I guess it has at least 6 fans. Dawn of War 3 from 2017. The incredibly disappointing Dawn of War 3. It was, what would you call that style of game? Like a MOBA? It's kind of like Defense of the Ancients. So it's like a game where you have sort of hero characters moving around while sort of chaff fodder units controlled by the AI endlessly clash down different lanes, and you have to sort of like push a lane to get to your opponent's base or something. It's quite a departure from Dawn of War 1 and 2, and I really wonder who convinced them to go this route with this game. Especially after Dawn of War 1 and 2 had been so successful. They must have been thinking this is what people want these days, but boy, were they wrong. I think it was made by Relic Studios, is that right? And I want to say they like went under after making this game. I could be wrong about that, but that was my impression. Dominic, sure did. I'll post some finished up on Instagram. Oh, have you already finished basing? I run Ulthway because of the Eldrad leader rules. Okay, that makes sense. Good reason to play Ulthway. But I like to call them the Craft World Kaldau. Very cool. A shortened play on the Icelandic translation of Chill Death. Oh, that fits with the sort of frost theme that you have painted, which most Eldar Craft World are based off of. Thus their frozen frost type color scheme. Yeah, they look really cool. Well, that's neat. So it means like chill death. Are you saying that most Craft World language is based on Icelandic? Is that a thing? I hadn't heard that, but it's fascinating. Or just yours. And Ulthway does have a cool color scheme. I really like black color schemes. So of course I've got that with my Dark Angels with Ravenwing, and then my Orcs I play Goth, so they're black. And I feel like one of the great things about black is that you can just prime the models black and then you're like halfway done. So yeah, kind of the lazy painters probably like Ulthway. But your paint job is really very artistic for those. You have like a complete color fade going sort of through purples and teals and to kind of a white. And it's all done with the brush, I think. No airbrush. Dominic says Nordic, Icelandic for the name of most Eldar Craft Worlds. Interesting. Kind of fits with a little bit of the mythology of those areas, doesn't it? Have you heard anything about the sort of mythical like islands of little people up in the British Isles? There's some ruins of like underground or like almost like Hobbit Hill type settlements where the beds are very short. I want to say the beds are like 4 feet long in some of these old ruined settlements, which you know, I think these days when they're giving a tour they say, oh yes, people slept curled up, but I would think they would have to be tiny people. And I want to say the doorways are also the similar size. All right, well, we got a base layer on the sort of Genestealer cult icon here. They call it the Great Devourer. And I want to do that same thing here on his neurotromal rod. If you do get a chance to go to Stonehenge, I found it was very fun. There's not like a whole lot to do there, so but you can get like a kind of an audio guidebook to listen to, although I don't know how they're doing that in the age of COVID. I guess they just sanitize the headsets before they hand them out to a new visitor. But if the crowds are really down and tourist travel is really down, that would make it an ideal time to visit Stonehenge, which I thought was quite impressive. Fun place to get your picture taken. People immediately know you're in England when they see a picture with Stonehenge in the background. And when I was 19, I actually did a bicycle trip across England from Land's End in the southwest tip of England all the way up to Edinburgh, Scotland. And it was a fantastic time. It was it was a fantastic trip. I can't say it was a fantastic time because I guess the United States was invading Iraq, I want to say. It would have been like 2003. And so I had like Chinook helicopters flying over me from time to time while I'm on my little bicycle trip. And I thought, well, they're probably, getting ready for the invasion or something. But so it was an interesting time, and it was a fun trip. I hadn't really done any training for riding bicycle long distance besides just riding my bicycle to class in college every day, which was just a few blocks. But at 19 years old, I did just fine. I found that I could do like 50 miles a day, no problem. That was like a super easy, fun time. And if I did like 70 miles a day, that was like grueling and punishing. So I would try to kind of aim in between those. But I had a lot of 70-mile days, as I would basically try to get from one youth hostel to another every day. Youth hostel is a very affordable way to travel in England and much of Europe. At least it was when I was traveling. And in the big cities, youth hostels are not the most clean or well kept, but certainly out in the countryside, the youth hostels were very nice. And sometimes they would be in just quaint old farmhouses. And once I stayed in one that was like almost like a manor house or a castle. And one of the fun things about riding a bicycle around England is just passing by like old ruined castles just on the side of the road that you could just park your bike and go explore on foot. I had at least one or two of those that I passed that were pretty cool to check out, that weren't important enough to require any kind of admission or be roped off or forbidden entry or anything. Although I don't know if these days those are all surrounded by chain link fence or something. I haven't been there, to these same locations in about 20 years almost. But that was a great trip. I originally planned to ride my bicycle all the way to John O'Groats, which is the very northeast tip of Scotland. So that's a classic bicycle trip route from Land's End to John O'Groats, or else the other way. And I don't know if there's especially a certain route you're supposed to take. I just kind of drew my own route to get between youth hostels, and it was great. It was really fun. I didn't pass a whole lot of super exciting landmarks because I wasn't really intentionally trying to seek them out. I wonder if I should do some gold trim on this guy's armor. There's quite a lot of trim on his armor, so I kind of don't want to, just for that reason. But I suppose I could always paint it without trim and then come back and add it later if I decide I want to. Let's see, I think his tail's just going to be coming right out of the back of his pants there. He must have just cut a hole in the butt. What color do I want to do for his handle of his neurotromal rod? Probably yellow. That's kind of my accent color. Okay, I do want to paint the handles of his daggers gold here. Do you ride bicycle, Dominic? I would definitely suggest taking a bike trip while you're in England if you get the chance. I found it to be super fun, especially riding along the coast is quite exciting. The coast in England kind of reminds me of the coast here in Oregon. Mix of cold sandy beaches and rocky outcrops and cliffs. Gold on the feet and shin tip would be cool. Yeah, it would add some nice detail. He's looking a little bit basic at the moment. I'll have to check out where, I don't know if you said what part of England you think you're going to maybe be going, but I should check that out and see if I can recommend anything to check out while you're over there. Besides Stonehenge, I also visited, in 2019, Christmas time, I visited a town that has a stone circle all the way around it called Avebury. That was quite interesting. Sort of reminiscent of Stonehenge, but more spread out. And the rocks are not as uniform. The Stonehenge rocks are very smooth and kind of rectangular. At Avebury, they're like every different shape. Lincolnshire. So Dominic says, I do ride every once in a while. If it's too cold, I just row in my room. Cool. Well, if you do a bicycle trip, aim for about 50 to 60 miles a day is a nice, fun trip. Lincolnshire is where I'll be headed to if I get selected for England. I think you told me that, and I figured out it's not an area I've been to, but I'll have to double check that. All right. Let's see. Well, Dominic wants me to do some gold trim on this guy. Maybe I'll give it a go. Won't take too long. Let's see here. He's got very clearly a little place for some trim here. This is more like hold your breath type painting. Oh, that went pretty well. Let's continue that. And looks like he's got some trim here. And then on his breastplate, it looks like it runs along the bottom of this piece. Once I add some wash, it'll help fix any little mistakes, hopefully, too. Well, it's looking good. Good suggestion, Dominic. Thank you. And I am putting the paint on very thick for this because I don't want really watered down paint to kind of run everywhere while I'm trying to do a very fine edge. Are we on camera? Kind of. Should I zoom in for this? Be harder to keep him centered, but we'll try. Oh, that does show you what I'm doing at least. Wow, it's almost easier to see on the on my phone than in real life. But I love England, and one thing I definitely noticed is that once you get out into the countryside, the people are incredibly kind. So, and then a funny thing I discovered is that as you get further north, they think they're nicer than the people in the south. But I found that outside the big cities, they were equally nice in the north and the south. But that was quite funny. And there is a kind of a famous hike that people do in England, which goes through Wales and through what I think they call it the Lake Country or something. There's kind of a hilly natural area that goes through northern England and Wales that has a hiking trails running across all the way across the island, I think. So it might be something to look into if you're into long distance hiking. I think people said it takes about, I don't know, like a month or something to hike it. And it seems to be popular with retirees, so it can't be too strenuous. I met some older people who were staying at a youth hostel while I was passing through on my bicycle, who told me they were hiking across England. I think they were going east to west. And we had a funny conversation at the breakfast table, as breakfast is often provided, included with your stay at the youth hostel. And we were talking about, is it appropriate to use the sort of the term love when talking to a stranger in England? Like, you know, if the waitress brings you your breakfast, do you say, thank you, love, or is that rude? And one of the older women was saying, "Oh no, you shouldn't say that to a stranger." And one of the men was saying, "Oh, I do it all the time." I thought that was funny. So I guess it's a little uncouth, but you're not required to be couth all the time. Certainly once you get old enough, maybe you stop worrying about such things. Or maybe that kind of thing is dying out and less common. I don't know. All right. Well, we got some trim on there. I wonder about hitting this foot that's on the ground. That's going to be tricky. Well, I did create a new kit bash today. Unfortunately, he's not here at the desk. I was just priming him earlier, and he's still downstairs. So I got a Lord Commissar for my Imperial Guard, and it's from Anvil Industries, which is one of the sort of third-party Warhammer manufacturers who make sort of Warhammer-compatible miniatures. And it's a Lord Commissar. The one I got, he's kind of like kind of funny. He's like almost like a pin-up character. So he's got like his washboard abs and his shirt's open, and he's normally got a chain sword that he's kind of holding up above his shoulders. But I went ahead and kind of modified him so he's got a power fist and a bolter, going for the most effective weapon combo, or at least what seemed like it would be pretty good. And I already got my nameplate on him. He's going to be Commissar Cavill, in honor of Henry Cavill. So yesterday I painted my Reductor Saboteur Diesel here, the explosives expert, named after Vin Diesel, who plays 40k, so now I'll have one for Henry Cavill too. So that'll be kind of fun. And I also have a character named after Robin Williams. He's my weird boy for my orcs, and he's named Robin Millions. So I thought that was a fun twist where people would still be able to tell who he's named after. All right. Well, we're making great progress on this guy. I'd say we're getting close to ready to start applying some washes, as he's pretty much base coated. I don't know if I'll really be able to get at his little scarf that he has over his mouth. It's kind of hidden behind his hand. I guess I could kind of paint it from that side. Maybe we'll just leave it kind of gray and put some wash on it. I did say maybe I would paint the handle of his staff yellow, but I didn't actually get out yellow paints for that. Let me do that real quick. So we'll progress through a few more of the top-ranked Warhammer 40k games. We're going through games that got 6 votes, and we were just talking about Dawn of War 3 from 2017. The game that possibly killed Relic Entertainment. And then we get to Space Hulk Vengeance of the Blood Angels. So this would have been the second Space Hulk game after Space Hulk 1993. And I guess they're tied for votes here. Vengeance of the Blood Angels was the first Space Hulk game, which was like a first-person shooter. And it wasn't like super 3D. It was sort of like old crummy 3D, or fake 3D. Where kind of like those old Dungeons and Dragons games where you like go down a hallway from one position to the next, and it kind of sort of approximates a 3D experience. And it looked like not that great. Certainly by the time I was looking at it, it seemed like already dated. And by today's standards, it would be probably, most people would consider it like unplayably bad 3D, but for its time, it was like the first 3D Space Hulk game, so kind of a precursor to today's Space Hulk Deathwing. And yeah, not much else I want to say about that one, but now we're getting into the more high-ranked games, and pretty much into the top 10. So I guess that's exciting. So here come the top 10 best ever ranked 40K video games according to a Facebook poll. And first up we have, oh my god, how did this one make the list? Fire Warrior from 2003. I hated this game. So I actually bought Fire Warrior and I tried to play it, and it was like kind of like a bad first-person shooter, I would say is how I would describe it, or a first-person shooter kind of on rails. So imagine a first-person shooter where the levels are mostly like trenches, where you don't really have the option of going anywhere except down the trench. And for some reason you can't actually ever climb out of the trench. That was kind of my experience of Fire Warrior. And I assume that eventually you get into room-to-room combat and hallways and stuff, but the first couple levels where you're stuck in the trenches just kind of rubbed it in that this is a game where you're advancing along a track like an amusement park, and you're not really going to be making creative decisions of where to go or how to play, and you're not really going to be like feeling like you're on a battlefield. You're going to feel like you're constantly stuck in a hallway, basically. So I think I only played it for about maybe 15 minutes before, maybe an hour or two before I gave up on it, and I did not finish it, so maybe I don't have enough experience to say it was really terrible, but I did not have a favorable opinion of it. And like I say, I did buy it and not continue playing it, so there was that. So Fire Warrior, that's our number 10. And number 9 is Final Liberation from 1997. So kind of incredible that we have a game from 2003 and then a game from 1997 making it into the top 10. And I think that Final Liberation is here in the top 10 basically because people have fond memories of it. I'm pretty sure most people have not played it in a decade or more. But Final Liberation was kind of like the original Warhammer strategy game for PC. And I did not play it, but it looks kind of interesting. Like I said earlier, Rights of War from 1999 kind of looked like a little bit of an update to it. But Final Liberation definitely seems to have its fans, and I have been curious about it. It's when I think of like 40K games that I kind of missed out on ever playing, it's always at the top of my mind. All right, well, there is his neurotromal rod finished. That was a very fun little kit bash for this rod that he carries. The neurotromal rod is like the only weapon that you can actually see, I guess, because his swords are in it, on the official model, as he's kind of holding it in front of him. I don't think it actually has a G-Steer Cult icon on it, but how did I make this? I think the middle part here is from a Neophyte Hybrid Power Maul. And this is a Gene Stealer Cult icon from like a little icon sprue. And then the handle and the arm are both from a Drukhari holding a spear, which comes, I think, from the Raider kit, maybe. And then I added a little pommel on the end, which is actually from a Deathwing Knight mace. So 1, 2, 3, 4 different parts making up that neurotromal rod. I was quite happy with how it looks, and I like how he's kind of swinging it down out of the way, like maybe he just tried to hit someone with it, or else he's just throwing it aside as he focuses on his knives. And I just also like how it just feels kind of dynamic, how he's got this straight line kind of shooting down off to the side. I like how it kind of fits with the motion of the model. Well, let's see. What do we have left to paint here? Could put some highlights on that. We'll do that maybe in a minute. Or maybe we'll do it right now. Just going to use a little bit of Flash Gits Yellow to put a little highlight on that yellow handle. Using yellow as an accent color, so it's okay to go really bright here. That's good. There we go. Just like that's enough. All right, what do we need to paint now? Maybe let's get a first coat of ink wash on his cloak. I want to go kind of a little bit softer with the ink wash and then maybe do multiple coats. So maybe I'll stick with this small base brush for this, just so that I don't go too crazy with the ink wash. I do want it kind of everywhere on the cloak because we're going for kind of a brown cloak, but with the small brush I can make sure it's well spread out. And actually this is the same color I like to use to ink wash gold, so maybe we'll go ahead and hit the icon while we're at it. Makes it a little easier to not have to avoid it anyway. So there's just the front. There's the back. So we're in our top 10 Warhammer 40k video games, pretty much of all time, we could say. Although I know I'm missing out on some games from the last 2 years probably here. And so far we had Fire Warrior and Final Liberation in the 10 and 9 spot. Number 8, we have Inquisitor Martyr from 2018. And this was another one that was kind of a surprise to me in that I wasn't really aware of it, and it very much reminded me of another game, which is, seems like kind of like a Diablo knockoff. And I was quite surprised to realize there's a sort of a 40k Diablo out there, and that is Inquisitor Martyr. So it's from 2018, so it's one of the most recent 40k games. Meaning if you are looking for a 40k game to play and you have a more or less up-to-date PC, or even a few years out-of-date PC, then this would probably run just fine and also look pretty decent. The gameplay I watched looked cool. I'm a fan of Diablo, so those kind of games I think are pretty fun. And it looked like you're playing as some kind of, I guess, an inquisitor running around killing hordes of heretics and various enemies, and presumably collecting gear and following some kind of storyline. So, looked entertaining, like both fun and probably some story too. All right, well, there's the first coat on his cloak. So you can see it just gave it kind of a little hint of brown. But I think as it dries, that'll start to look more brown, and then we can hit it with another layer of wash, which should greatly increase the effect. And doing the same thing to the underside of the cloak, which I didn't paint, so it had a black primer, and then I did a zenithal spray, which barely hit the bottom of the cloak at all. So it's very dark here, pretty much just black primer. Now getting a coat of Agrax Earthshade brown wash. There we go. What else do I want to hit with this wash? So this is the wash I'm planning to use for all of his gray clothing, which is what he's wearing underneath his armor. So we're going to be hitting his arms and the top of his pants, basically. Everywhere that there's not armor, and then where there is armor, we'll be using probably watered down black paint or else Nuln Oil. We'll see. We'll see when we get there. Oops, I got some ink wash on my finger. Let's wipe that off. Just a little bit here. How are we doing on keeping the model on camera? I think I'm doing better today. Looks like I failed to paint his back, but fortunately that's a part of the model that basically nobody's ever going to see, so I'm not too worried about it. Try and make sure I'm getting his arms. Still can't really see what I'm doing in there. And now the back of his upper pant legs. I'm going a little bit heavy with this wash, but that's okay. It's going to pretty much stay put where I'm putting it down here, I think. I was doing my construction job today, putting up gutters. It was a little rainy, but I didn't get drenched, so not too bad. And it should be sunny tomorrow to finish up the project that we started today. All right, there we go. See if I could get a little more on the back of his pants there. All right, I think we're... Oh, and then anywhere he's got gold, I kind of want to use this, so maybe on his daggers. And I guess on his neurotromal rod. And I may come and hit it with a little bit of a gold highlight too. I have a kind of a brighter gold around here somewhere. Auric armor gold. Probably use that for a highlight on some of these gold bits. I love Agrax Earthshade as a ink wash. It works for so many different colors. Just gives everything kind of a nice dirty finish, which is kind of what I'm going for with a lot of my factions. And it even would work pretty well for this yellow. Let's go ahead and give it a thick coat of that ink wash. There we go. Then we'll want to let that dry before we ink wash the hands. Oh, and they actually need a highlight. I'm going to do a pink highlight on all the exposed skin. Maybe we should do that next. Or maybe I should do... Yeah, I guess we should do that because it's going to take some time to dry and we want to do a wash on that afterwards too. So going to mix up a lighter pink with Screamer pink and white. Guess we better dip in the white first. Good old White Scar layer paint here. And that Screamer pink that we used on the skin earlier. So that gives us this nice kind of medium light pink. Just don't want my brush too wet because we kind of want to dry brush this on and not have it mix with our ink wash we just did. That's working. So let's see, we were just talking about Inquisitor Martyr, which looks like kind of a Diablo style game. Looks fun, looks interesting. Oh, I didn't really do anything with the spikes on his tail. White is not a bad color for those. Might want to hit them with an ink wash in a bit. Maybe Agrax Earthshade, just make them look kind of dirty. So I am trying to sort of hit the upper edges with this pink, lighter pink, to kind of make it look like light is hitting areas. So Inquisitor Martyr was our number 8. Number 7, we have Battlefleet Gothic Armada from 2016. And this must have been a popular game because I saw a lot of people playing Battlefleet Gothic on YouTube. And I'm not even sure all of them were like 40k players. It seems like that game might have had some kind of crossover appeal to people who like space combat simulators and stuff, or like space combat strategy type games. Of course, Games Workshop released a Battlefleet Gothic tabletop game back in the day, and I think I might have heard something about it getting re-released recently or in the future. I'm not sure. I know lots of people still play Battlefleet Gothic, or at least paint miniatures for it. I've been seeing a lot of Battlefleet Gothic on Instagram of late. And I'm not sure if people are 3D printing the models or if they are going back and collecting the old game, or if this is a new release of the game. I'm not totally clear on that. But Battlefleet Gothic Armada is basically a video game version of Battlefleet Gothic, so space combat in the 41st millennium, which is mostly centered around giant ships, but also with fighters and missiles and frigates and all the sort of stuff that we recognize from naval combat, applied to the sort of science fiction fantasy world of Warhammer. And Warhammer spaceships, of course, are pretty cool. They're like kilometers long and just bristling with guns and cannons and missile bays and all that stuff. And they generally rely on, I believe, like void shields, so somewhat similar to Star Trek. They have shields that can repel a great amount of firepower before they eventually fail and the ship starts to take damage. But I don't know, as far as like a game, how fun Battlefleet Gothic looked to me. Kind of looked like one of those games where like all your ships shoot at once and you just sort of like gradually whittle down one enemy ship at a time, kind of picking your priority targets. And it didn't look super like complex strategy to me. But I don't know exactly what the rest of the gameplay is like, if there's a story in the campaign, and how popular multiplayer is, or how fun or balanced multiplayer is, I guess, is also a question. Did you ever play Battlefleet Gothic, Dominic, or anyone else? And then we're coming up to one of my old favorites. So ranked number 6, we have Chaos Gate from 1998. And I'll tell you, this is perhaps the buggiest video game I ever played, and I still love it despite that. Chaos Gate was super fun. You were commanding Ultramarine Space Marines, and you're fighting against Chaos, and it's like a tactical game where you only command like a few Space Marines, and you're sort of trying to kill off whatever Chaos Space Marines are on the map, and also discover like relic weapons and stuff, which then you get to equip for future missions. And the game was legitimately buggy to where I never finished it because I would encounter bugs that prevented me from getting any further in the game. So it was that bad, but still super cool. It had the feeling like each of your Space Marines were really important. Like you would upgrade them between the battles, and if they died, they were like permanently dead. So you would work really hard to try to beat the mission without losing any of your Space Marines. And it was really fun, like picking which ones you were going to bring on your mission and equipping them with different like relics that you had found on previous missions. So that was a cool one. And it seemed like it was kind of advanced for the time. So Dominic says, I did for a bit. I assume you're talking about Battlefleet Gothic. I like strategy games, so Dawn of War is definitely there. I didn't like how long it took to get to fighting, but it was a neat game planning out where to send my fleets and what weapons to use. Oh, interesting. It does sound kind of fun. Interesting, you have to decide where to send your fleets. Makes you sound like kind of a fleet commander. Pardon me 1 second. Got running. Did I successfully mute my mic? I hope I did. All right, where are we gonna paint now? Can you guys see how the cloak is kind of darkened up a little bit? All right. Maybe we should start doing the ink or paint on the armor. So I think I'm gonna go for watered down black paint, and it's gonna act kind of like an ink wash, but not exactly. It's going to basically remain a bit more on the surfaces than an ink wash would. At least if I get the mix just right. So I'm going for maybe like 60% water, 40% paint about. And if I get it right, then it won't look like a wash. It won't look like a shade paint. Yeah, this is kind of what I'm going for. So kind of like black armor with just a little bit of silver kind of showing through. Hard for me to tell if the silver is showing through for you guys, but let's focus on it. Yeah, there you can see kind of the effect. Watered down black. This is kind of my recipe for Genestealer armor. And kind of what I'm going for is that the armor is painted black, but after like 100 years, the paint is starting to wear away, and you can start to see the metal kind of shining through a bit. There we go. So we talked about Battlefleet Gothic, and now, Chaos Gate. Chaos Gate was interesting because not only would you command some like Ultramarines infantry, you'd even have access to like Predator tanks and I think dreadnoughts and land speeders and stuff. So there was an actual variety of units, and you could also get like jump troops, and generally each individual Marine fought on his own, but you tried to coordinate everybody so that you wouldn't lose a bunch of enemy troops when the opponent got to go. It was turn-based, I want to say. Turn-based strategy, tactical combat. And I don't think anything exactly like it has come out since. One of the things that was kind of interesting about it was that the environment that you were in had sort of multiple heights to the terrain. And you could sort of show or hide different levels or layers of the terrain in order to see down into like hallways that were like down staircases from the battlements and or the tops of industrial structures and that kind of thing. And I think you even fought against like bloodletters and other kinds of chaos demons and stuff. The name of the game, Chaos Gate, must have implied that there was like a portal to the warp or something that you were trying to close, I assume. But yeah, like I said, I never finished it. It was too buggy. Next up, we have ranked number 5. One of my all-time favorites here, Space Hulk Deathwing 2016. So this game, I'm happy it made it into the top 10. I'm happy it made it to number 5. But I'm also kind of surprised because I know a lot of people did not love it. I tried to get my roommate to play it, and he was like, this game is boring. It's very, like, one-dimensional. I'm just, you know, shooting down hallways and, you know, staying with the team, and that's pretty much all that ever happens in this game. Which I could kind of understand. But they did release an enhanced edition, so that added some, like, customizable armor, which gave you things to, like, and customizable weapons, so that gave you something to kind of grind to build up your something to grind for, I guess, to unlock equipment and improve your equipment for all your different classes. You could be like a librarian, an apothecary. Oh, Dominic says, ugh, Deathwing was super cool as an FPS. I play it every once in a while because I enjoy the stress relief. The length of the missions is odd, but I'd play it again. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was a big Left 4 Dead player for a while, and it kind of scratched that same itch for me of co-op team FPS. And I like that you're basically on the same team with the other human players, so you don't usually have to worry too much about griefers or, getting owned by other players who play a lot more than you. And my favorite thing was kind of to like welcome new players to the game and help them learn the game and the missions, and to kind of be the squad leader with a bunch of newbies. I would always enjoy that, and trying to give them like a very good experience of the game so they'd hopefully stick around and enhance the community to have more players, basically. So I quite liked Deathwing. Plus, as a Dark Angels player, it was cool that I had a game that was focused on the Dark Angels chapter. And what else to say about it? One of the best things about Space Hulk Deathwing was the like environment and level design. It seemed like the people who designed the environments really liked 40k lore, or else really did their research well and understood like the 40k grimdark aesthetic. You're fighting in Space Hulks, which are usually abandoned spaceships, and they would be full of like dead bodies and skeletons of like the Mechanicus guys who were previously running the ship. And there would be like servitors grafted into the walls in like certain areas that were very macabre. And in general, I just say the art direction of that game was very good. The actual shooter action was maybe so-so, but overall I was a big fan of it, and it was like Dominic said, like a game for stress relief. One of those games I could just like sit down at night and plug in and play for an hour, 3 hours or whatever, just kind of like forget my problems from the day. It was good for that. And I found it very replayable. It is a game where you kind of like memorize the different ships and learn your way to collect all the relics. But my favorite way to play it was special missions, where you would get random missions. And I like to play on the hardest difficulty with random missions. That way I felt like I was getting basically the closest thing you could get to the real Space Hulk, Terminator experience. No holds barred. And it could be quite brutal on those settings, but at the same time, then if you could beat it with good teamwork, I felt like made it all the more fun. Well, let's take a look at how this guy's looking now that we've got the armor painted with a layer of watered down black. And I did go ahead and apply that to his knives as well, just to give them some shadowing, but maybe we'll give them another highlight to bring up the brightness a little bit. I was thinking of doing one more layer of pink on his skin before we ink wash it, but maybe I'll do the ink wash first, then a highlight. So we're actually getting pretty close on this guy. I did want to add another layer of brown wash to his cloak. And we've got a Caraburg Crimson wash for his pink skin. And then probably a highlight on the skin. And maybe a highlight on the gold. So next up, I'm thinking maybe let's do another layer of wash on the cloak. And that can give the the black paint we just did some time to dry, and then we can come back and do the crimson wash on the skin. So going back to our Agrax Earthshade here, and just going to apply this again gently to the cloak area, as I immediately go way too heavy with it. And why not hit the icon again just a little bit. And it looks like we never did put ink wash on his little medallion there. Let's hit that. I'm trying not to go so thick with this ink wash that it pools all over the place, but a little bit of that might be unavoidable. Mostly just trying to keep spreading it out to avoid that. So, Space Hulk Deathwing. I would love to keep talking about it, but I don't think there's too much else to say. Same idea as most of the other Space Hulk games, where you've got a group of Terminators, you explore these derelict spaceships and have to do various missions while you fight off swarms of Gene Stealers. But what made this one really special was getting to play multiplayer co-op where as a first-person shooter. So, pretty fun. Okay, Dominic asks, favorite weapon? I like the plasma cannon or assault cannon. I was really quite partial to Stormbolter Power Fist as being sort of the classic Terminator loadout. And I have to say, favorite weapon that's not in the game, totally needed Stormbolter Power Sword. The classic Sergeant loadout was strangely missing from that game. I did kind of feel like the loadouts were not designed by someone who played 40K, because they overlooked that pretty obvious one. And in fact, the Sergeant role was kind of missing from the game. Instead, we had a tactical squad member who could res teammates or basically call reinforcements. But I really felt like that should have been the Sergeant, and he should have had option to have Power Sword and Bolter. But yeah, I think Stormbolter Power Sword, but I mean Stormbolter Power Fist. Oh no, Stormbolter and Crozius Arcanum, because I love to play Chaplain as sort of the squad leader, and so carrying my classic Rod of Office in combat was kind of a narrative decision I would often make. And the Crozius Arcanum was not like very good. Some players felt like it was a really kind of a trash weapon. But the trick, in my opinion, was to equip it with the power enhancer, so it would hit much harder, but slower. And it had kind of like a wide sweep attack, so it had good range, and once you increased the power on it, it would hit pretty hard. So yeah, I would say Stormbolter and Crozius Arcanum was my favorite loadout. But runner-up would be Assault Cannon. Assault Cannon was super fun in that game. And then I also have to do honorable mention to Flamethrower. The Heavy Flamer was an excellent weapon. It was kind of a little bit cheaty because all your suits are fireproof. So you could just shoot the Heavy Flamer right through all your teammates and roast huge amounts of Xenos with it. And if your whole team was dead and it was just you versus swarms of Xenos, you pretty much couldn't beat the Heavy Flamer for surviving alone in that game. And probably my favorite thing is when your whole team is dead and they're counting on you to res them or stay alive until they res. So you have to hold out for, 1 or 2 or even 3 minutes waiting for your teammates to come back and holding out alone with everybody counting on you to stay alive and not have the mission fail if you die. So I always found that kind of situation super exhilarating. And I learned like the location of all the safe rooms. Each ship would usually have a few hallways that you could lock all the doors and be safe. So if you were last man standing and you could make it to a safe room and not lock the doors, then you could just wait out the timer in safety. And so from like a tactical point of view, it was cool to learn the ships well enough that I always knew what the closest safe room was and could often reach it if I was last man standing. So those were some of the tactics I enjoyed in that game, and those were some of my favorite weapons. Guess we'll move on to a game that I have not played, and which is sort of surprising. I played all the others from here on. So this was number 4, Mechanicus 2018. And it appeared to be kind of an isometric adventure game. Kind of a little bit like Diablo, but a little bit more like a tactical on a grid. And I think it was turn-based even, and it looked quite interesting. And it must have been pretty good for people to vote it number 4 out of all these games. So that's kind of an unexpected one for me. Mechanicus from 2018, voted number 4. Did you ever play that one, Dominic? Mechanicus? Seems like an interesting one. Might be worth checking out. Like I said, I'm not playing a lot of video games these days, but for those of you who are, maybe check out Mechanicus. Watch some gameplay on YouTube, and if you haven't heard of it, like me, and see if it might be something down your alley. It looks like you play as a tech priest, which is interesting. I've always thought that tech priests were very cool looking characters ever since, way back in the day. So pretty cool that now we've got a video game where you play as tech priest. And if it is an adventure game where that has kind of like an interesting storyline, that would also add some interest to playing it. All right, well, there's our Carroburg Crimson Wash on the pink skin. Looks like I just missed this one hand down here. All right. Well, we're getting very close to finish with this guy. And we have 3 games left on our top 10. Next up, at number 3, we have Dawn of War 2. Oh, actually, I haven't played our number 1 game. So Dawn of War 2 from 2009. I played the heck out of Dawn of War 2. There's a bunch of... Dominic says, I have not. So you haven't played Mechanicus from 2018. It seemed like a 40k version of XCOM, but I missed out on it mostly. Yeah, I agree. It does kind of look like XCOM. So Dawn of War 2 from 2009 was a sort of a unique strategy game that's not exactly like anything else I played, but I do think that that Relic made a World War II game that was very similar. So you're basically controlling individual squads and characters, and you start out with a hero of your choice for whichever faction you pick, and you have to micromanage stuff like squads using special ammo, throwing grenades, falling back to avoid grenades, and like area of effect spells and stuff. And you're fighting over rec points and power points, which you can develop the power points into power farms, and then you're going and trying to destroy your opponent's power farms, and you're sort of collecting resources from everything you control, which you use to call in more reinforcements. So it kind of had the classic format like StarCraft, where you have your base that produces your units, but instead of building buildings that make everything, you're usually calling in reinforcements, which sort of seem like a more of a fitting sort of narrative element for 40k, where you don't necessarily expect that Space Marines are being produced on the battlefield in a barracks. They're usually being called down from orbit or something like that. So Dawn of War 2, most 40k players know it and love it. And then we have number 2, Space Marine from 2011. And of course, we have the big news of a sequel to Space Marine finally coming out now in 2022. And we've just seen a spectacular trailer for that. Space Marine from 2011 was super popular. So did that come out before? So it came out before Eternal Crusade. Interesting. So Eternal Crusade was not the proto Space Marine. It actually came out after, 5 years after. But Space Marine, a lot of people remember it fondly. I played quite a bit of it. I didn't finish the single player campaign, but I think I got about halfway through it maybe. And I kind of enjoyed the multiplayer, and I believe it also had a co-op multiplayer where you're fighting against waves of orcs. And that was fun. So I kind of played a little bit of everything in that, and I feel like they got Space Marines pretty accurately. I felt like the action in multiplayer was a little fast, especially compared to how quick things move around in tabletop. Seems a bit slower and more methodical, but yeah, action, 3D action game, I guess it makes sense that stuff moves around pretty fast. It's kind of weird your Space Marines would be doing like rolls on the ground, but I'm sure they could do that. Just doesn't make a lot of sense with a big bulky power pack on your back, but whatever. And it had a kind of an interesting mechanic where you would heal by performing like a sort of a coup de grace. That was kind of interesting. Anything you want to say about Space Marine from 2011, Dominic? I assume you played it, probably. I feel like everybody played it, but maybe not. Meanwhile, I think I'm going to do a little bit of white paint on this guy's hypermorph tail to just sort of pick out these little spikes a bit more. And we are coming up on... Oh, you say, oh yeah, my dad and I did. Never played multiplayer, though. Oh. Multiplayer was kind of interesting. You could get a jump pack and be like a melee guy, or you could have like a las cannon and be like sniping people with a scope from across the map. And it seems like you were kind of fighting over like flags or something, but I don't remember the multiplayer super well. I do remember loving the melt-a-gun, which would just let you totally toast somebody in one shot usually, but it was kind of short range and you had to really time your shot and aim it just right. Alright, so there's the hypermorph tail enhanced a little bit. Let's maybe add some silver highlights to his weapons. I wonder if I have a silver layer paint that would be good for that. I think I just have another of the same silver I'm already using. Iron Hand Steel versus Iron Hand Steel. Yep, okay. Well, let's just add a little extra silver to make his weapons a little shinier. Maybe should I mix a little white in with the silver? So Space Marine was definitely a well-loved game. It made it to number 2 on our list. And I have a feeling you can guess what's number 1. The most loved Warhammer 40k video game of all time, I would say. And we are sort of including expansions in all counted with the base game. So of course the most loved would be Dawn of War 1. A lot of people still love that, and it won the most votes. And it's actually one I have never played. I have watched a fair amount of Dawn of War 1 on YouTube, and it's actually pretty entertaining to watch, which is usually a sign of a good game if it makes a good spectator sport or competitive game. And it did have a bunch of expansions, which gradually added more and more factions to the game, so it had everything from, like, I think, Sisters of Battle and Necrons to Drukhari and Eldar and Space Marines. So, very cool game. And, yeah, people love it, still to this day. It came out in 2004. So how wild that a game from 2004 is the winner of most loved Warhammer video game. And we are getting really close to finish on this guy. Hey, welcome, Vorkash. Oh, add a light blue to silver and not a white. Oh, interesting. Sounds like a good tip. Light blue kind of makes sense because you want your reflection to be almost reflecting the sky color to give kind of like almost a chrome kind of look, huh? Well, welcome, Vorkesh. We just counted down the top 40K video games of all time, starting with the ones no one's ever heard of, like Carnage and Storm of Vengeance, and getting up all the way to the top 10, which I'll just count down again. Number 10, Fire Warrior from 2003. Number 9, Final Liberation from 1997. Number 8, Inquisitor Martyr from 2018. Number 7, Battlefield Gothic Armada from 2016. Number 6, close to my heart, Chaos Gate from 1998. Number 5, one of my favorites, Space Hulk Deathwing from 2016. Number 4 was a big surprise, Mechanicus from 2018. And then everyone could probably guess the top 3, Dawn of War 2 in the 3rd spot, Space Marine from 2011 taking 2nd, and Dawn of War 1 from 2004 taking the top spot. So Vorkesh, what do you think of that top 10 Warhammer 40K video games, and what's your favorite? And we are just about done painting the model here, doing my custom kit bash of a Genestealer cult Locus, kind of an assassin bodyguard for the cult, and very dynamic kit bash compared to the super static official model. This one's made from a Warhammer Fantasy Dark Elf. And what do I want to do still? I'm thinking a little highlight on the gold. I have this Auric Armor Gold, which is a little lighter to use as a highlight. Vorkesh, I've played a lot of them myself, and I have to say Dawn of War for sure. Sounds like you're in agreement with a lot of people. I have actually never played the original Dawn of War, but it does look super fun, and I love how it has so many factions and units and models in it. Kind of the Warhammer 40K game I always wanted and we never got was like StarCraft 1, but with Warhammer 40K units, and specifically with like every Warhammer 40K unit. That would have been like a dream game for me. And of course, I've heard that StarCraft was actually supposed to be a Warhammer 40K game at one point, but maybe they couldn't secure the rights or something, so they ended up making it their own intellectual property and just sort of changing stuff around just enough so that it wouldn't actually be Warhammer themed, which I guess props to them because they've created an incredibly popular franchise. But it always seemed like it would be so easy, you know, StarCraft 1 with, simple 2D graphics. Seems like you could just create tons and tons of different units without taking forever. And how cool would that have been to see a game like that with a huge variety of Warhammer 40K units? I think that would have been super cool. Missed opportunity there, but could always happen in the future. Vorkesh says they did good at making each faction different. Oh yeah, I've noticed that. I've watched some Dawn of War 1 on YouTube, and it's like the production buildings and turrets and stuff that are available to each faction did seem really different, and each one had to have kind of their own style of building and recruiting units and stuff. So that was cool. And also neat how you would get like big squads of Space Marines. I think, wouldn't you start out with like maybe squads of like 3 or 5 or something, but then you could add to it and get up to pretty relatively big squads of Space Marines, almost to the 10-man squads of Tabletop, or maybe you could even have 10-man squads. Seemed like it was one of the ones that got closest to the actual way the units worked in Tabletop, which was cool. Alright, there I did a little bit of a ink wash on the hypermorph tail there, but it was maybe a little too dark. I'm going to use a little bit of this sepia wash to try to kind of make that fade a little more gradual here. That looks a little better. All right. Might be finished with this guy. As I totally keep painting. Well, here we are. His armor did come out a bit dark, but that's okay. That's kind of what happens when you use watered down black instead of an ink wash. Oh, I'm totally off camera. All right, here we go. Now you guys can see a bit better. So here is our finish, Genestealer Cult Locus. And let's cap my wash before I knock it over there. So we've got that nice dirty brown cloak. It came out kind of a similar color to his armor, which is silver with black over it. So interesting how silver and black came out very close to gray and brown. And they even look close to me in person. It's not just on camera. And we've got his tail, his three arms, his little cult icon above his head. I feel like that could use a little more ink wash on it. Let's do that. Just a little bit more Agrax Earthshade on his icon of the Great Devourer. Trying to go really heavy on that wash there to give it a shadowy kind of appearance. Yeah, like that. Hopefully we can get it to dry like that. I'll leave the model horizontal here for a while. Dominic says, looks good. I think those gold accents really helped with the shins and the feet. Oh, yeah. Yeah, great suggestion there. I appreciate that. Really separates the armor a bit so it doesn't look like one item. Yeah, the armor was looking a little bland without those, without that gold trim. So I agree. That was a good suggestion. Thanks, Dominic. Well, guys, thanks for joining me for another painting stream as we counted down the top voted Warhammer 40k video games of all time and the top 10. And hey, before we end the stream, any Warhammer 40k video games from the last, what, 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021 that you guys are playing or have seen that look really good? I seem to remember there was a video game that was kind of like Left 4 Dead, where you play like a squad of Imperial Guardsmen or something fighting in the sewers against, what, Genestealer Cult? I saw a trailer for it that looked cool. Have you guys played that? Do you know what that game is called? Maybe I'll set up the little spinner for a final shot of this guy. And then, of course, I did mention we've got, what do you call it, a trailer for Space Marine 2. So that's very exciting for a lot of people. And one of the cool things in the trailer is you got to see a Primaris Space Marine with an assault jump pack and a melee loadout. And apparently that was designed by Games Workshop. So we are expecting Primaris assault intercessors with jump packs in the next year or two, probably because they were designed for that game. Let's take a quick look at where we started with the miniature. Here was my kit bash before I added the icon on the back and before I primed it. And I'm just setting up a similar shot with the finished model for a second here. Bear with me. Dominic says Necromunda was pretty cool for a game. So is there a Necromunda video game, and is it recent? And or did I miss it in my rundown? Necromunda video game sounds totally cool, because I've never quite, I mean, I guess I have actually painted a Necromunda army. I did Van Sars, but I never actually learned the game. I never learned Kill Team or Necromunda, but they both look fun. But a Necromunda video game totally sounds down my alley. It kind of reminds me of an old strategy game for MS-DOS called Chaos Overlords that I really loved, that had kind of a Necromunda feel to it. where you fight over city blocks and recruit a bunch of gangers of different kinds. Sci-fi game. Alright, well here is our finished model. The Genestealer Cult Locust, ready for action. Ready to assassinate some characters, protect the Brood Coven. Ready to slice and dice with his 2 daggers. And what am I going to name this guy? I do have some little nameplates. Let me see. I guess I'll have to look through them all on my own time and figure out which one I intended to put on him. But I was thinking maybe name this guy after Adrian from Tabletop Titans. Pretty sure I have a nameplate for him. Yeah, here's a little Adrian nameplate. Might do that in silver on this guy at some point. But yeah, very cool. Very happy with this model. Very happy with the paint job. So really excited to see him in game, see what he can do. Adrian, the Genestealer Cult Locust. And oh, Dominic says Necromunda came out in 2021. It's an FPS, pretty quick gameplay, lots of weapons to use, overall a cool game. Interesting, first-person shooter. I would have thought it would have been a tactical gang combat game. Well, cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. Looking forward to our Games of Warhammer 40K coming up in the next week or so. And we do have one more stream coming tomorrow, so feel free to join me again if you're free. And we will be painting probably this another Genestealer Cult character, another Kit Bash, the Biophagus. I think that's how you say it. Very fun Kit Bash made from a Necromunda Delaque ganger. And I had a lot of fun making this Kit Bash. He's got an auto pistol and an injector goad, which he could use to wound enemies or to buff up allies. So, and then he's got like a backpack full of various poisons and toxins and serums and stuff. So very fun little character, which was recommended in one of Zara Kane's videos that I watched. So look forward to that. Probably painting that guy tomorrow. So everybody have a great night. Thanks for joining me in the chat and have a good one.